Okay, it's reached the appointed hour. We have everybody here but Ross. So we'll go ahead and begin presentation. Rachel, you're doing them all, correct?
Right.
Excellent.
Okay. Welcome to Planning Commission. The first item on tonight's agenda is Indie Studio Suites. It's a request to amend standard land use code tattoos and body piercing from a not permitted use to a permitted use in the C3 zone. That's the location. So this zone is only in one spot in the city, from about 4 to 800 west and 800 to 900 north. Here's the street view of that. This is what that text change would look like. So the applicant wants to differentiate that they would be doing beauty tattoos and not traditional tattoos, which uses 1 to 3 needles, and they're smaller, lighter, lasts less than 2 years. However, the Utah County Health Department doesn't differentiate between tattoos no matter the number of needles. And so that's why it's all going under the same category. And the staff recommends the planning commission send a recommendation.
Is there any standard land use code that does differentiate regardless of what the health department does?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And why do we only have C3 right there? It seems like a good idea. Why is it just?
Because that's what they asked for.
So this was created, and Smith's across the street was created when they were developed, probably 85, 90-ish. And the C2 zone already existed on State Street, so really just a zone that abuts up against directly onto residential. And they just built in some standards as far as landscaping and things, so they were unique after the fact on the C2.
But this is the only C3 in the whole city?
Currently, yes.
And it's,
We will be rezoning the Smiths back to C3.
oh, okay.
How many other areas? So I have heard that the master plan may be going away and things are changing. How many other places up and down State Street would be returned to a C3, or would there be?
This one and Smith's.
That's it, almost.
That's it. We're also adding into the ordinance, which you'll hear on the second, and there's a neighborhood meeting tomorrow night. So we are adding in a setback of 100 feet with a 35-foot maximum height in that 100 feet, all up and down State Street. So whenever it butts a residential zone, not the 100 foot setback. Which is kind of the main idea behind the C2. The uses are similar. The setback was a little different next to residential. So that 100 feet, 35 will be almost exactly, not exactly, but close to what the C3 was designed for, or intended for.
And do you imagine C3 expanding to anywhere else? Okay.
Any other questions?
What precludes them from going the other route with their tattooing and beauty work?
From
Any other roads?
In other words, doing it permanent rather than temporary.
Most, if I can guess, most of these are women who are getting their eyebrows or their eyelashes.
Makeup tattoo.
so
It's makeup tattoos.
Just you.
there's an existing beauty salon right now.
So there are other tattoos as well. He'll have some stuff probably to show you, but ladies and stuff, if they've lost a baby or whatever, they'll have a tiny little tattoo or something. They kind of mark that, and it's a fades over time, so it's not a big giant tattoo. There are some, you'll see that people have that are kind of lighter than others. Basically, it's a tattoo.
He'll be here tonight.
Great.
This will allow any tattoo parlor though to go into this area, correct?
But then this will be precluded just to this type of tattoo.
C2 already allows tattoo.
Yeah, so it's only permitted in the C2 right now. Any other questions? Okay. Item 3.2. So this is a request to vacate lot 16 of the Farm Plat A and approve the Farm Plat C. This is located in the R8 zone. Here's the existing plat. So the applicant wants to vacate the public utility easement in order to build a pool in their backyard. So currently there's an 8-foot PUE that proposed plat looks like. And staff recommends the planning commission approve the new plat. Any questions? Okay. Item 3.3. This is a request to vacate lot 15 of CHERAPPLE Canyon Plat A and approve CHERAPPLE Canyon Plat B. This is located in the R12 zone and it's up on the hillside, so it also falls under the hillside ordinance. Here's the existing plat. So they just want to vacate the rear PUE in order to build a retaining wall, so then they can build a house. Here's a proposed plat. Here's a copy of that retaining wall. It's already been approved by Sam Kelly, the city engineer, and it meets all the requirements of the hillside ordinance as well.
It is a steep lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's a building lot.
Yeah.
That'd be great
Well,
tuning tool.
designed it, actually.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna do a lot of scraping and stuff on that.
Yeah.
I think it worked. They're gonna have to stabilize everything, at least.
That lower area, those contours can't even be disturbed. So they have to work within that footprint that you see on there.
It's part of the access too, but it's not, there's actually a city right away.
I was gonna say, right into that easement right there, right?
Back,
Yeah, this is an easement up to the tank.
Yeah.
So he's utilizing that as an access.
as it's driving.
I think there's about a 50-foot elevation change on that lot.
That I don't know. Looks
I don't know.
pretty steep.
Yeah, it is steep.
I bet there is.
Yeah. No, I counted the lines. It's like 45, 50 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
To run that thing.
Okay.
No one uses that easement as a trail, right? They
That's
use it
in-
around, because I assume you know.
Well, there's a paved road that goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
easy.
So it's not.
No, this isn't a trail.
No,
There's a water tank up there.
You can get to a trail by going to
The
the
road
paved
is
road.
wrapped around.
This doesn't change it.
There's a road that wraps around to drive up to. Nice
I
hiking.
didn't feel great.
For my wife's favorite hiking.
Okay, so staff recommends approval of the new plat. Any other questions?
They'll be here.
Okay, item 3.4. So this is a request to amend portions of section that all the numbers 221133 P8 in the PD 21 zone and increase the parking rate to 1 stall per occupancy unit. So this zone is down by the pedestrian bridge and it's mostly single student housing. Here's what that proposed text amendment would look like. Just want to clarify for you all that an occupancy unit is kind of like saying per bed.
Not per door.
Yeah.
Per bed, not.
Yeah, and then if the bedroom is over 110 square feet, that counts as 2 occupancy units. So it could be a shared bedroom. And it's increasing from rates of 0.62 and 0.65 to 1 parking space per occupancy unit moving forward.
So when you say moving forward, the existing structures, parking that's there is still at whatever it was when they built it?
So they'd be legal non-conforming.
So any new?
Right, after December 8th, looks like that's the date. Anything built after that, there's a vacant piece that abuts the parkway, that one would have to be one.
Is that likely to be more student housing?
Yes.
Well, if you look at the appendix, it's not just student housing, it's, the idea is to create a walkable, kind of villagey feeling area. There are lots of stores allowed. You know, they require a certain density of students, but, you know, you'll also have your gyms and restaurants and whatnot in the area. The idea was, what does it say in the first paragraph of that zone, like a European village type feel, so it's.
That was the original plan, when Parkway Crossing came in, the whole thing was gonna be developed as, just what you described. phase, and then they lost the two properties behind, so they since sold them to two different people.
But they have to follow the same concept plan, right?
But the core of that is in the parking, or the or Wolverine Crossing area. They wouldn't necessarily have to build it in this location.
So the new property developers don't have to follow the existing submitted concept
So
plan?
there's area 1, 2, and 3. Area 1 has that, and area 3 can do some other things. But they still could do it. I don't know that it's exactly required that they do it, because the Parkway Lofts behind them doesn't have any retail area. It's just simply housing. So phase 1, area 1, I guess, or area A, whatever it's called, has that.
Has anyone done a parking study on this to see what the actual rate is?
It's about a 1-to-1.
Since 2018, since UVX and the pedestrian bridge program?
Has not changed.
Students are still bringing cars with them.
Is it not close to the area where we write all the tickets?
It's close to the access.
Yep. It's close to the access? Yeah, in fact, the student housing next to it, we write about 20 tickets a day for excess parking outside. So there's definitely no parking for students.
Yeah, what they thought, and what we bought into as well, that with the train, intermodal, all that kind of stuff, the access, that people would not bring cars, that would utilize that. What we're finding is that they utilize it, but they also.
But they leave their cars there.
And it's very rare that, I mean, there are a small portion that don't bring a car, but that's the exception.
That's really interesting, because when I was at BYU, I didn't have a car for at least a year of that, and it was not uncommon in student housing there for half the apartments to have vehicles.
No, you're right, Shauna. A little bit of a difference at UVU is a lot of those students have jobs.
But Carl Mazer was, but then again.
Some of the entry-level BYU students, like my nieces that go there, they don't have jobs their first year, they live in the dorms and they don't have cars.
And I tried that for my son. He goes to the U. I got him a dorm room so he doesn't need his car. And not well at all. Because even though he was in the dorms, he still had to get a part-time job. And most of the tracks and the buses don't know what his job is. So now we ended up not just getting him the dorm and paying the higher price, but paying for parking, additional to keep his car there. So I wanted him not to have a car. I wanted him to just go walk all over the place, you get the experience, go check it out. It was different than I expected.
Yeah, what we're finding in most projects nowadays is that they pretty much bring a car, so.
Is the parking paid?
Excuse me?
Is parking just lumped in with the rent, or do they pay separately?
It could be both. It could be a second, an extra charge or whatever, so that's why we have some of the issues with the parking. But most of the newer projects, we require them to include it in the rent, which I would imagine would probably come in here as well.
So it's
But
free
would it be
parking.
allowed now?
It's not free. The access apartment requires a fee for the students to pay, and that's what created all the extra parking issues right outside the neighborhood. Because students don't want to pay rent and parking, so they end up bringing the car, throwing it in the neighborhood, and then we had to issue permit-only parking for that neighborhood.
Yeah, the green on campus drive, which is the one on the east side of UVU, has to be included, by ordinance, it has to be included in the rent. You can't charge separately for that, so
Okay,
if somebody
so
rents, they have to provide us something.
What about this one, this zone?
That's not written into it currently.
So this might not help any if the developer decides to
Well,
charge.
1-to-1 is pretty much
It's pretty good.
Is that, may I ask, is there one-to-one, is there one bed in each room, or are there two beds in a room?
so if it's, typically if it's under 110 square feet, they're only gonna fit one bed in there. That's why the distinction between if it's over, like some of these big, like Parkway or, West Parkway Crossing, now Wolverine Crossing, they have some bedrooms that are larger, so the 110, they have two beds. They were required, 0.65 times 2, right? This is saying the same thing, so if somebody comes in and puts smaller bedrooms, which typically nowadays, they want their own bedroom, they want their own bathroom, maybe they'll share the rest of the unit. But they typically have 4 or 3 or whatever separate bathroom, bedroom, suite, if you wanna call it that. And so each of those would be counted for one parking stall. But if it's over 110 square feet, meaning they have the ability to have 2 beds in there, we would require them to have 2 stalls. So it's not per door, It's per the bedrooms and the size of the bedrooms.
So the 110 square foot bedroom is required to be a private room, to be marketed as a private room.
Anything less than 110, anything 110 or over, we would require, whether they rent it for 2 or not, we would require 2 parking stalls.
But if they do charge extra for parking, this might not help the external parking situation.
They could, but there wouldn't be typically, I wouldn't think an issue if everybody has the ability to have a car.
Sure.
Another thing is at BYU, I believe you have to be a student to live in the student housing. That's not the case here. You don't have to be a student at UVU to live in these apartments,
So
and
they
there's a lot that aren't
They
students.
actually just did away with all that. There's no more BYU
Other
student
than
housing.
freshmen.
Freshmen have to.
Oh, the freshman housing. Well, yeah, who wants to live in Heritage?
So this is our intent to try to solve some of the issues we have, especially with going forward, housing will have an equal 1-to-1 ratio. The idea of share just hasn't worked.
It seems like the 0.62 or 0.65 to 1 is a fairly substantial jump. Does it help compensate in this one zone, or is that a standard moving forward everywhere?
This is just for the PD 21 zone. So just
Which is just that one spot where the greens are?
Wolverine Crossing, Parkway Lofts, and then this new,
Oh, okay.
that's the only.
Interesting enough, Parkway Lofts is parked at 0.65, and they don't have a parking problem that we've seen. But they have a different mix of people living there. In Parkway Lofts is the very light blue PD 20, what Jason will point to it.
So this Parkway Lofts here, this project. Wolverine Crossing, and this is the vacant piece. There's the hotel.
So Parkway Loft doesn't have a problem with a 6.65?
Not that we've seen, but they have a different tenant mix. They have married families in there, from what I understand, in some of those units.
But over time, things could evolve to whatever, and I feel good about the 1. I'm just wondering if we're overcompensating to compensate for the existing ones, or if that's just a good policy going forward.
So I think you're right on the last part. I think it's a good policy going forward. If for whatever reason in the future we think that it's too much, not because everybody wants to now share parking, maybe we can look at changing it. But right now, I think it's not working and we need to fix it.
But if we do change that in the future, if people say, you know what, I love hopping on UVX or the pedestrian bridge, and cars are too expensive and I can't find one right now, whatever, then we'll have tied up a bunch of land and added $3,000 in construction costs for that extra 0.3 parking spaces in perpetuity for whatever follows
Yep.
this
Unless
120.
they can look to redesign or redevelop, a portion of that parking lot. You're right. But that's, I think, the risk that, as far as planning staff goes, we just need to take that step.
President Dominguez announced today that we have an average of 5,000 students going over that bridge every day. I mean, Monday through Friday.
So it works. I mean, no question it works. But they also have a vehicle.
Right, because they still gotta get to work somewhere.
And that's the issue that we're struggling with. This will help solve that parking issue.
So it might just even be date night. I mean, it might be one night a week they want the car, but when they want it, so they'll park it all week. Except for that one night a week. They're going to see family or whatever it is, that's what they.
There's just a street view of this location. And then staff recommends the planning commission forward a positive recommendation to the city council. Any other questions or concerns?
Do you ever recommend we forward a negative recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious, I'm new here.
Oh, you missed the fireworks, they'll come back.
So the station. Three things that we'll do. We'll recommend a positive recommendation, a negative, or we'll just, like the first item, we'll let you decide, because we don't want to take a position on one or the other. So there are 3 positions that we'll take. Typically, we'll recommend
This is
it,
a neutral position.
but sometimes we'll do a neutral position. Usually we get to a point, like in a PD or something, we'll get to a point where we mutually agree on what's in the ordinance, and so we'll recommend approval. there are occasions, the first round of the Green on Campus Drive, we did recommend negative because they weren't really working with us and didn't want to amend some of their stuff. And so we did recommend, the planning commission actually recommended denial. And then they withdrew it, went back and revised it, so.
I believe the park on Center, we recommended negative,
We did on that too.
because we wanted it reserved for commercial use, but the council voted, in fact, the planning commission voted negative recommendation, council approved the budget, so.
Will those property owners from item 4 be here?
So we noticed all of them through the county records of the site.
Oh.
So legally, we haven't phone call, we haven't called them. We basically.
You don't have to, yeah.
Yeah, we actually do call them every Tuesday, or the Tuesday before planning.
Well, the applicant, we're the applicant on this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we called ourselves.
You all know.
So, in the agenda packet, you saw the notices that we sent out.
With the labels, 29 of them.
There's 29.
I just mean for other agenda items, we know if they're gonna be here or not. Did anyone hear? Are they
We don't
coming?
know.
I don't.
We didn't.
Typically, if an applicant makes it like the other 3 applicants, we'll call them directly and say, hey, reminder that it's gonna be on this agenda, so they can. When it's something the city does, we'll notice them through the mail, but we don't particularly call all the property owners.
Actually, I believe there was a gentleman here who said he was on the first item on the agenda, and he came at 4, we're gonna start at 4, so I think he's in there, so waiting.
Look at that, almost a whole half hour.
Did you got a training video?
Next time.
Next time.
Where's the right side? That's funny.
So we have 5 minutes to stretch our legs?
You can't make the guys an office.
Okay, we got offended.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, don't look back at
Mistake.
That's funny.
Do you adjourn this meeting?
No, we just go in, we don't use these.
Okay.
Sign, we just go in, take our appropriate.
I went in.
supposed to. Pretty sure. Now I turned it back on. Zoom room. So we have to try it again. Do you have your cell phone? Doug is 7181. Usually I'm supposed to turn all this off.
7181.
7181. I have a speed dial on my phone, which I don't have.
He was telling me about them. It's like, Shauna, when I said you were there when Carl Mazer was there, I didn't know if you yeah. Oh, I saw a statue. I used to teach in that building. Yeah.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
All of that wonderful woodwork and stuff. Oh. We're good. Well, we would like to welcome you to tonight's January 19th, 2022 Orem City Planning Commission meeting. Yes, we'll keep talking. We've asked Jim Condi on the commission to offer the invocation for tonight's meeting. Jim?
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee tonight grateful for the opportunity that we have to have a government that allows us to serve and hear residents and enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. We pray for thy Spirit to be with us as we consider the opportunities ahead of us today, that we'd be able to use wisdom and do the things that would help keep our community a family community and help us have pride in the place that we live. We're grateful for all the blessings and opportunities we have, and we're grateful for all that thou provides for us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Jim. Well, all the technology is working, so Rachel, you want to start with the first item on the agenda, please?
Okay, item 3.1 is Indie Studio Suites, and it's a request to amend Standard Land Use Code 6232 tattoos and body piercing from a not permitted use to a permitted use in the C3 zone. This is the location of the C3 zone. There's only one spot in the city currently that has a zone. It's between 400 to 800 west and 800 to 900 north. Here's a street view of what that place looks like. And here's what that text amendment would do. The applicant would like to differentiate between traditional and beauty tattoos. So a beauty tattoo uses 1 to 3 needles, and the tattoos are smaller, lighter, and generally last less than 2 years. However, the Utah Health County Department doesn't differentiate between beauty and traditional tattoos and the number of needles used. So, staff recommends the Planning Commission send forward a recommendation. Any questions?
Thank you. Commission, do you have any questions on this at all? The applicant is here, I believe. Would you? All 4 of you? Steve, would we allow them, all 4 of them, to take 3 minutes? Yeah, if you'd like to come. Is there anything that you would like to add to this at all?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, usually, when it's an applicant, you don't have the 3-minute time frame.
Yeah,
Usually
right.
it's when you open it to the public, so.
So you are here. Is there anything that any of you would like to add to what Rachel has given to us tonight? Come to the microphone. Oh, you have a mic right here. That's right. So it comes green. Yeah, push. School for the gifted, You need to speak into the mic, Val, please.
You can sit down.
Yeah, just relax.
So my name is Val Gregory, and I'm the person that sees the words P-U-S-H, and I pull, okay, on the doors. But above anything, I just want to take the opportunity to thank each of you for your time this evening and for hearing us and taking the opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. I represent the owner of the building and the owner of Indie Studio Suites. I also advise that you can go onto the website. It has a photo gallery. You can see the type of environment that we have. We think it's the nicest studio suite in the state of Utah. It's the largest. It's the only one that offers underground parking. It has the most windows of anywhere else, and it's very upscale. But I'd like to actually, and by way of introduction, this is Natalie Hampton. She's the lease manager of the suite. And then right here is Liv Oborn, and then Hope as well. Liv is a professional that would be leasing in the suite and performing piercings as well as the mini tattoos. And then Hope is one of her customers that can actually show you, what a mini tattoo looks like, for example. But I wanted to just let Liv maybe take just a little bit of time and just explain it as well. That's okay.
My name is Liv Oborn. I'm a 22-year-old artist. I was born and raised in Utah. I've lived here my whole entire life. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with a life-threatening eating disorder, and after years of treatment and therapy, my therapist advised to do something symbolic and meaningful. So I went out with my sister and got a tattoo to represent that, which was super awesome for me. I love the symbolism that I can have with that tattoo, but the environment was obviously quite stressful, a little intimidating, and overwhelming. So I came to my sister with the idea of creating a safe space where people can feel comfortable in the environment, a little bit more friendly and welcoming and inviting. we started searching for studios and found Indie Studio Suites, which we love and we think represents both of us perfectly. The biggest difference is, I mean, there's quite a few differences between us and regular tattoo parlors. I think the biggest ones that I can think of is all appointments are scheduled. We don't allow walk-ins, so every single tattoo is thought out and there's a conversation that goes on and a big decision is made, and that's if I'm the right artist for them and I agree that they're the right client for me and this is the right project for both of us. Environment, we love indie, we love the clean space, and we love that it's not intimidating. We're surrounded by other beauty professionals like hairdressers and nail stylists. Another huge thing is, I mean, I guess that would be probably the biggest one. I'm a little nervous. But yeah, a huge thing is environment and just creating that safe space where other people can come in and feel like they're in a welcome space. They're not intimidated because these are obviously permanent decisions, but we like to keep it to a lower scale. We don't do hands or faces or feet or anything like that. It's super out and about. We also don't do colors. The only exception is there's a term called rainbow baby when you lose a child, and that's the only exception where we would ever use color tattoos. I brought Hope with me because she was a client that reached out, expressed to me that she was going through a troublesome time, and we decided to come up with the idea of a moth tattoo to symbolize rebirth and growth for her. I don't know if you guys want to see it.
I don't know if you can see it from here. You want me to?
Our eyesight isn't that bad. So that, you know.
But she really helped that come to life for me, and she put a lot of energy into it. I don't have many tattoos. I grew up in Utah just the same as she did. But I really wanted something that I could look in every day and kind of remember that person that I wanted to become, and to strive for that every morning that I looked at it in the mirror and just have that. It was such a beautiful piece, and I was so happy to get it, and she really put so much effort into it, and it was such a safe, calming space for me too, that for someone that doesn't have a lot of tattoos and is a little intimidated by them. So yeah.
If I might, whenever I see anybody with a tattoo or a multitude of tattoos, I know behind every one of them there's a story. And it becomes an amazing introduction and an opportunity to get to know that particular person. So, yeah, and most of the stories are really cool, by the way. Okay. Anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, this is a public hearing. And so we will now open this to the public hearing. And if there's anybody who is here that would like to address this particular issue of the Indie Studio, we invite you to come to the podium, state your name, and you will be given up to 3 minutes to address this particular issue. There is no one that's here for that, so we're going to close the public hearing portion of this, and we're going to turn it to the commission for a motion.
Since the staff recommendation is neutral, I was just curious. I'm not very. It's on.
I think he muted yours. Okay.
But so we have to decide whether to make the motion to make a positive or a negative recommendation, and to me, think a positive recommendation seems like a no-brainer, but I'm not very good at predicting what my fellow commissioners think. So I'm just curious if anybody wants to try to convince me, or if I should make the motion to make a positive recommendation.
Make the motion.
Make the motion.
Okay.
Well, this applies to the whole area, right?
It applies to the
All of C3. So there's that empty farmland, that farmland there.
Well, yes, it is.
Somebody could turn that into the pirates,
I think there are probably
body piercing and
ordinances in place where they cannot set up a tent.
A tattoo tent?
Yes, that's not going to pass. Am I correct on that?
I think that's sold to the state.
Yeah, the ordinance is in place.
Yeah, the hospital owns that farmland.
Okay, yeah. All right, make the recommendation, Barry.
I move that we send a positive recommendation to the city council to amend standard land use code 6232 tattoos and body piercing from a not permitted use to a permitted use in the C3 zone.
Second.
Okay, Jim Conde beat Marisa to the second. Ross, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 You have a unanimous pass. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Yes, okay. So is there any help for any of the members of the commission except me? I mean, if they were to come for any of this type of beautification.
My eyebrows have been bugging me a little lately. Take it off.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Rachel, let's go to item 3.2.
Okay, item 3.2 is an application to vacate lot 16 of the Farm Plat A and approve the Farm Plat C, located generally at 475 South, 170 West in the R8 zone. Here's the location of that lot. Here's the existing plat, and currently there's an 8-foot PUE along the back side. Here's the proposed plat. The applicant wants to vacate that PUE in order to build a pool in the backyard. And then the staff recommends that the planning commission approve this plat. Any questions?
No, I think for us, anyway, everything was in the official packet.
everything's
Knowing all of
right?
the utility companies. Ross, any?
All in order, so.
All right. Is the applicant here? Would you care to say anything, or does that cover it? Okay. This is also a public hearing. And so we open it up now to the public for any comments that they would have. And again, we would ask anybody that is commenting to come to the podium, state your name and address, and you will have up to 3 minutes. And as I do not see anybody coming, we will close the public hearing portion of this and turn it back to the commission for a motion.
I'll make the motion, Mickey.
Okay, Marisa?
I recommend that we vacate Lot 16 of the Farm Plat A and approve the Farm Plat C, located generally at 475 South, 170 West in the R8 zone.
Second.
Second by Shauna. Haysom?
Aye.
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 Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks. Let's go to the next item, please.
Okay, item 3.3 is an application to vacate lot 15 of CHERAPPLE Canyon Plat A and approve CHERAPPLE Canyon Plat E, located at 938 East, 1810 North in the R12 zone. So here's that location. It's located in the R12 zone and up on the hillside, so it also falls underneath the hillside ordinance. Here's the existing plat. There's currently a PUE along the rear side. Here's the proposed plat with showing that easement vacated, and the applicant wants to vacate this PUE in order to build a retaining wall. Here's a plan of that in order to build a house on that lot. And the retaining wall has been reviewed already by the city engineer, and it meets all the hillside ordinance. And staff recommends approval of the proposed plat.
Okay.
Any questions?
Not from the commission? All right, then this is also a public hearing, so we would open it up to anybody from the public who would like to come to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have up to 3 minutes. As there is no movement, we will close the public hearing portion of this and turn it to the commission for a motion.
I move we vacate Lot 15 of CHERAPPLE Canyon Plat A and approve CHERAPPLE Canyon Plat E located generally at 938 East, 1810 North in the R12 zone.
I second.
Oh, Barry wins. It's the second. Then Ross, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I forgot to ask if the applicant were here. And are you okay? You ready to start? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, item 3.4 is a request to amend portions of section 221133P8 parking pertaining to the parking standards in the PD 21 student housing village zone by increasing the parking rate to 1 stall per occupancy unit. So this zone is located down by the pedestrian bridge and the freeway. Here's the proposed text amendment. And so it's generally increasing from rates of 0.62 and 0.65 to the rate of 1 parking spot per occupancy unit moving forward. And an occupancy unit is one bedroom that's less than 110 square feet. But if it's greater than 110 square feet, that would be considered 2 occupancy units. And there's a street view of the location. And staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation. Any questions?
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I forgot what it was called, there's the 2 complexes there.
Wolf Creek, yeah.
It has adequate parking at 0.65 per occupancy, right?
Right, the promenade to the north is adequate and the parkway lofts to the south.
I would suggest we have not had any complaints about parkway lofts. Promenade we have, so like the access, I think they both have.
Since it is legal in this zone still, a developer could charge extra for parking. This may or may not have any effect on parking on the street, park elsewhere, correct?
Correct. At this point, there's not a limitation for them to not charge for parking.
Could that be put in place?
Jason, you want to address that?
Take my mask off. So the access to the promenade, even though they're charging for parking, their parking lots are full.
Oh.
So, I mean, students are paying the cost to do that because they want a convenient parking spot. What the problem is they're full, and so the extra people that have cars, that's what we're seeing in the neighborhood. So the fact that they're charging for parking wouldn't prohibit students currently from purchasing that in addition so they can have a convenient parking stall. So
Where
I
are they
see that
spilling over?
right now they're in the Springwater area.
Mm.
They put a parking permit north of 8th South, and that kind of solved that problem, but they're kind of now spilling across Geneva Road over. We've worked with UVU. There's 200 stalls that they can get a permit for to park there. So, I mean, we're still trying to solve the issue. The one-to-one will help alleviate that issue.
Is this the one I heard where there's like 20 tickets a day, like first thing in the morning getting written for people that are not?
It's by the Access apartment. It's the neighborhood north of the Access.
Yeah.
That's what it spills to. And it's south.
South.
Yeah, it's close to it, but not in walking distance where they go park there.
So they're renting a unit, they're paying for parking, and there's not enough parking stalls. So are they selling more permits than they have stalls?
No, not at the Access now.
Okay.
So they're probably not selling them because they're out of parking. So they're just saying, you can come, there's a unit, you just can't bring your car. Students are bringing a car and just figuring it out.
I see.
I have seen efforts from BYU and UVU to encourage their students to not bring vehicles to campus. But I understand it's part of the apartment complex's job as well to prove that, hey, you can walk across I-15 on a lovely bridge. UVX is here every 15 minutes. Do you know if, does anyone know if these apartments have done much to dissuade through advertising or whatever to tell kids that you really don't need a car to live here?
These apartments are not exclusive to students. Anybody can rent there. That's one of the other issues. If it's just student, that may be more control, but this is not exclusive to students.
And as far as this one goes, we're dealing mainly with this new piece right down here, correct? Or is it the PD 21 zone overall?
PD 21, so the Axis and the other project, Promenade, are not part of this zone.
Right.
It's something that's completely developed, except for a small portion, which we may come back and obviously change that as well. This one is a larger piece, and we felt that it needed to be done now in case the applicant comes in and wants to redevelop that or develop it, that this will be in place. Because our experience in the last 5 years is we were hopeful that all the different things, the elements that are part of this would work, but it just hasn't. So.
Okay. And increasing the parking is, I see no problem there.
I'll point out increasing the parking also increases the cost. So if we're saying 0.3 spots more and a spot costs about $10,000 to construct, we're adding $3,000 to the construction cost, and that's an ongoing cost to the students. And a decrease in the number of units, and I'm hesitant to tie up so much land in expensive structured parking when in the future people may not need it. I think it should be left up to the developer.
Well,
but if we have
my experience is the city would not come and ask to increase a parking spot unless if they're facing such an issue, an existing issue that they cannot solve, especially with the excess parking around it and the neighborhood's getting highly impacted. So the developer can have a little bit less apartment in order not to burden the people already living there and purchase homes.
I would be okay with a few years of discomfort while the culture changes, while people realize that, hey, the Ped Bridge has been there for over a year now. I'm okay with some discomfort temporarily for long-term cost savings.
That's a bit of forcing ideology, though, that discomfort for somebody, so somebody else can have. If we can prevent it now and forever, it should be presented, and the city never asks for an increase in parking. Like, this is, when I saw it today, I'm like, how is the city asking for that? And now going to the record of the amount of tickets we pay for other neighborhood, you're just trying to prevent a future disaster as we see daily in Texas.
Yeah, and just a point of clarification as well. If we get to a point where the city council allows PDs along State Street or other parts of the community, we will require and recommend denial if they don't provide at least one. That's a standard we're going to go forward with until such time as it's proven that we don't need that many stalls. And right now, it's just the opposite. So our best intentions have not worked, and so we need now to correct the issue in our mind. This is just planning step.
Yeah. Can I make a motion?
You guys ready? Yeah.
I think we need to have the public hearings.
Oh. Yes, we will. I'll open that in just a minute. So this is, go ahead. Oh, Jim.
Sorry, so just a quick question. What this is proposing doesn't change any of the existing apartments. It's only that new spot. And I'm also assuming that at some point down the road, if cars are not needed the way they are today and that need goes away, someone could petition and we could revisit it and say, based on this new future 20 years down the road, go ahead and put in another complex and take out a parking lot because it's empty.
Yes, that is correct. An example on State Street, for example, where the old Kmart parking, yes. Prior to that, we used to have 5 stalls per 1,000. That was modified at about 2,000. That's when I got the KFC, we got the Denny's, and other things. When they realized that was just too much parking, they modified the standard, and then we got some pad sites out front. So, I mean, yes, in theory, that would be the case. If for whatever reason something happens and people shifted to more of a intermodal route and we didn't need it.
And in areas that we know the parking is not an issue, we've approved before, just 3 months ago, I believe, the property by Columbia Lane, we approved an additional 21 building units without any parking stalls because they've had enough parking studies and enough history from then for 5 years that they didn't need them. So it's a case by case basis.
You're right, thank you.
I see this is valid for what you're asking for.
Yeah.
It's a case by case.
And the other one, it was valid not to have any more parking and approve 21 more units.
Right, not all projects have parking problems, but there are many that do, and student housing is one of those aspects that have issues because everybody's bringing a car. So, but I don't want to go away thinking that every project we have in the city has a parking problem because that's not accurate, but there are many that do. I'm just going to stand here until you make a motion.
Okay.
It's too late now.
All right, this, anything else for Jason? Is it safe? Yeah, we'll find, but wait a minute, well, this is a public hearing on this particular issue. And if there is anyone who is here who would like to step up to the podium, address the microphone with your name and address, we would greatly appreciate that. There is no movement. We will close the public hearing portion of this, bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I'll make that.
Okay.
I recommend that we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend portions of Section 221133 P8, parking pertaining to parking standards in the PD 21 Student Housing Village Zone by increasing the parking rate to 1 stall per occupancy unit.
Second.
Russ got the second in. I think we start with you, Hazen.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Next item on the agenda.
That was the last item.
No, next item on the agenda is
Minutes. Yes.
the what? Oh, the minutes. Oh, yes.
Minutes.
Have you all been able to review the minutes? You okay with them?
I move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that. In favor, we start, Russ?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's the minutes. Now, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. It's great to have all of you back. It feels like it's been about 3 months, but I guess it's been about a month. So again, thank you for your service. You all came back, so you must kind of like it, so we appreciate that. And we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you. So that begs the motion to adjourn. Second. Oh, well, lots of seconds that time.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
We'll need to make some modifications and reprint one, so. Okay. Give me just 1 second.